Hello and welcome, listeners, to another episode of Money and Me. You're listening to your host, Abhirag Bhattacharya, and today we got a really nice session going on for you ahead. We have Kapil Rathi, the co-founder and CEO of CrossTower, with us, who will be our guest today. Kapil is an industry veteran. He's been in the business for more than 25 years. He's also co-founded CrossTower, which is an exciting new venture, recently reached its $1 billion trading milestone. It's big news for CrossTower. We will be covering it in our podcast and hopefully talk about a couple of expert opinions from Kapil as well to make sense of the craziness in the crypto world recently. So, Kapil, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Abhiraj. Thank you for having me here. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Right. So I know it's early morning for you, but then it's not too
it's
late.
9 a.m., not early. My day starts pretty early and already like 3 meetings down.
So are you like a tea person, coffee person? Did you have your fix yet?
Yes, I'm a really Starbucks freak.
Okay.
So unless I get a Starbucks espresso shot in my body, I can't function. So it keeps me going. But thank you.
All right. Okay, let's talk about the biggest development this weekend. So the country El Salvador, the president recently announced that they are eagerly looking forward to legalizing Bitcoin as legal tender in their country. And if they end up doing that, then they will be the first country in the world to adopt Bitcoin as a legal currency. So could you tell us about the potential effects of such a decision on El Salvador's economy?
Yes, this is in fact a huge news. It was announced when I was at Bitcoin 2021 conference in Miami.
Right.
We had an amazing gathering. About 15,000 people landed in Miami, and it was taken really positively, especially by the crypto community. There were like cheers, clapping going on as soon as the news came out. I think overall, it's a really positive development for Bitcoin and the crypto community in general. I think just this morning we heard some interesting news coming from China also, that they are kind of clamping down on Bitcoin mining farms. Of course, there are other sort of in the past couple of weeks, sort of both positive and negative developments coming from different countries. In fact, I'm really pleased to hear what India is doing in this space. RBI kind of shared some clarity around that. So overall, the countries are, in last couple of weeks, different countries have reacted in very different ways. Going back to El Salvador, I think in general, most of the South American countries are struggling with inflation and corruption, the government corruption. Of course, like we have seen Venezuela as a great case. The value of Bolivar, the local currency, is going completely down the drain. And in Bitcoin 21 conference, there was a big giant dump truck that had, I think, trillions of Venezuela dollars sitting in that dump truck, and people were just literally throwing the money up in the air. But it was demonstrating that if a country is not properly run, what effect it could have on their local economy, what effect it could have on their local currency. So this speaks very highly of the Bitcoin use case. There's been a narrative from day one of what is the actual benefit of Bitcoin. This is going to the core of bringing unbanks to the mainstream, helping control inflation in these countries where there is almost no proper policy in place to control monetary or fiscal policies. So I think these sort of developing nations and then third world countries were the perfect use case for Bitcoin. It was designed for them. And what we have seen from El Salvador is the first recognition from a country like this. In long term, what it could mean for US dollar, especially El Salvador currency is pegged to US dollar. So if more and more countries start going through this route, it could actually have a meaningful effect on US dollar too. So this particular news is not about just one country. This is about the global sort of banking / payment network throughout the world. So a lot to be seen, but overall positive.
So you think Bitcoin is not it's not a competition against the US dollar in any way? Because a lot of people think that Bitcoin is competing against fiat and it's trying to replace it. But do you think they both can coexist? Because it seemed like you said the same.
Absolutely. I do not see Bitcoin as a competition to a local currency. I think it is it has demonstrated a technology that can be used to bring the sort of unfortunate nations who haven't really been able to keep up with some of the developed countries. That use case is very important. It's not necessarily attacking the more mature currencies. It is helping unbanks in different countries. And I think the technology behind Bitcoin can actually improve US dollar, euro, JPY. The concept of stable coin and central bank digital currencies is essentially an improvement on how our current payment system works. Imagine having a 24/7 movement of currency. I mean, today at 4 p.m. New York time, banks do close. You can't move money after 4 p.m. There is no such thing in crypto. And then, of course, moving money globally, you have to go through multiple hoops. You're paying transaction fees. You're waiting for multiple days. So overall, I think this is a healthy development. Bitcoin is kind of leading the evolution of payment technology.
Right. I was going to ask this question to you later in the interview, but I'm just going to bring it up now because we're talking about it. So you mentioned CBDCs a while back, and there has been a lot of development in CBDCs globally. Recently, Russia announced that they are undergoing a test development of their own digital currency, following the footsteps of China and Sweden. Now, many are pointing out that this can lead to a formation of a worldwide group that functions independently and remits US sanctions useless. So, for example, many are now pointing out that if Iran starts creating its own CBDC, then they could effectively start selling oil either through Bitcoin or through other CBDCs. So, what are your thoughts concerning these accusations, or rather these hypothetical scenarios? Do you think CBDCs and Bitcoin, it can lead to political feuds around the globe?
That's a great question. I mean, if you look at the sort of any sort of new technology, it will always have obviously the positive effects, but there could always be side effects, right? So we have seen this in industries after industries. We like early days of Napster, where peer-to-peer music sharing was kind of invented. There were a lot of concerns about what does it mean to royalty? What does it mean to copyright? All the artists are doing so much work, and is Napster actually going to essentially kill the creativity? And I'm just giving you an example. How do you relate sort of evolution of technology from early days of internet to where we are? And then look, 20, 25 years later, the entertainment industry has completely evolved from what we have seen, buying CDs and track records, to now downloading music and royalty going back to artists in real time, contracts, what Netflix is working with production houses. So there's always sort of, in the beginning, you will find those concerns, but down the road, I think as some of these kind of developed nations, we know how to figure out these side effects. So going back to CBDC, power of what CBDC can do. Let's focus on that first. Now you have a 24/7 payment system. Now you have a instantaneous movement of capital from government to local people. Look at the quantitative easing that happened, or these programs that government rolled out after COVID happened in US and many other countries. In March, when COVID happened, government announced that we will be sending $1,200 checks to every US citizen. It took 4 to 5 months to get that check. And by that time, a lot of people were already, they lost their jobs, their families were suffering. Most of that stimulus package probably did not reach its intended audience.
Because a lot of people don't have bank accounts in America as well. So unless you had a bank account, you could not really withdraw the stimulus check, right?
Right. And then you ended up in having sort of unintended recipients actually receiving that stimulus. Like there were talks about some large food chains actually receiving the stimulus package. With CBDC, you can track the movement of money from the origin, this government, to where it is going. So that's just one example of what digital currency can do. You can instantaneously send this money to its targeted audience. You know where to track. You can, once that money is in the system, you can track it all the way back. So it is in fact going to help control anti-money laundering in a really, really significant way. Today, cash is the best source to do any sort of money laundering. If once you are out of banking system, you move cash around, there is no way you can track that. So that there is just many, many examples of what digital currency can do. Going back to the side effect, does this mean, is it going to prevent or kind of minimize the US sanctions or Iran or OPEC nations actually misusing it? I think as regulatory bodies, and I come from a very heavy regulated world. I've been working with at the regulated exchanges throughout my life. I think there is a lot of creative, smart people, sharp brains with our regulators. We will figure it out. I don't think it's going to be a free for all. I don't have an answer how, but there are some really smart and sharp people in the world working at IMF, World Bank, SEC, CFTC, and other countries' regulators. We will make sure that the technology is not being misused. And we've done this again and again.
Speaking of regulations, in what continues to be a major worry for numerous crypto exchanges in the US, the upcoming regulations targeted at cryptocurrencies can either serve as a major boon to the market or wipe off a lot of investments and exchanges that are currently in US. Kraken, for example, they've already stated that if the regulations seem to affect their financial products, they would actually leave US. Now, under such circumstances, tell us what we can really expect from these regulations.
So I think on positive side, a structure regulatory framework or the current state of regulatory uncertainty is a friction, and especially for institutions, pension funds. There was a report published where CrossTower actually contributed to by PwC and IMA that one of the big concerns that institutions have is regulatory uncertainty. There is a clear appetite and desire from institution community, pension funds, endowments, high net worth, family offices, and everything, to have more clarity around regulation. So on positive side, if we are able to when we get this regulatory clarity, I think it will be positive for institution adoption for crypto. And I think we're actively watching what US regulators are going to do with the multiple ETF applications. We're seeing Canada approving ETF applications. There is plenty of European nations who are now letting individual investors use their pension funds, retirement money to put into crypto through these ETFs. So that's, again, it's something that we're very closely watching. On the flip side, I tend to agree with what I think you mentioned, over-regulation, and especially if it's not done in coordination with other countries, could be really detrimental to US crypto business. Bitcoin, ETH, and in general, digital asset industry is a global asset class. It is not local. Unlike some other asset classes like equities, commodities, there is no such thing as a local exchange versus an international exchange. The entire asset class moves around the world. So if we end up in over-regulating it, there is a very high likelihood that the digital asset industry will move to other countries. So we really, really need to be careful. How do we balance the innovation and regulation hand in hand?
Right. Now, this brings us to the question that I was originally going to ask you right at the start. I know Kristen was going to be part of the show, and of course, we're missing over here. But this leaves a question to you then. I want to understand the thought process that led to the creation of CrossTower, because the company is relatively new, the exchange is relatively new, 2020. But then, like you said, you, Kristen, the entire team, you have so much experience backing you up. You guys seem to know like what is exactly required in this scene. So tell us about the story of the creation of CrossTower.
Yes, so thank you for asking, and apologies from Kristen. She definitely said hi to your audience. Hopefully, we can bring her on our next on your next podcast. So just kind of take a step back. My and Kristen's background is primarily from traditional asset classes and markets. Very different background. I have been helping build regulated exchanges for past 20 plus years, mostly on the derivative side. And Kristen has really amazing expertise in building hedge funds, structured products, and she's a regulatory expert in this space. She also leads a think tank called Digital Asset Regulatory Group, DARLA, where she works with 120 plus really sharp regulatory experts on helping shape kind of just policies in this industry. Combined, when we sat down, we looked at I think the industry has evolved really fast. The asset class has been adopted primarily from retail. I think if you look at 2017 boom, that was a very retail-driven boom. But we've been working in the institutional space for long. I mean, Kristen has been actually helping hedge funds since 2012, 2011, and how do you invest in Bitcoin. I got involved into this 2015 with the new Bitcoin ETF application and the Bitcoin future development at my previous employers. And we clearly saw there is a gap for active traders and institutions. From an institution perspective, the investment is not straightforward. You still have to go through multiple hoops about worrying about cybersecurity, managing your private keys, operational risk, regulatory risks. Like if you're a multi-billion-dollar pension funds, dealing with all those risks, and just to be able to convince your board to invest in this asset class is not easy. Then from an execution perspective, there is a lot of barriers there about the inadequate technology. You still see, like just 2 weeks ago when Bitcoin dropped one day to, what was that, 31,000? Exchanges couldn't take that type of volatility, right? Big exchanges like Coinbase, Kraken, Gemini, Binance, they all were down on the same day. Then on from a hedge fund and active asset managers perspective, there are inefficiencies around risk management, around sort of portfolio margining, to be able to borrow and lend efficiently. So the infrastructure really doesn't exist for these active traders who demand better technology, and the institution who actually need sort of other services to actually execute this asset class. And we saw that gap, and we think some of the other sort of crypto asset exchanges and other firms have done a remarkable job to service retail customers. They have made it easy, but they primarily come from more from a technology standpoint. I think to help grow this asset class, make it mainstream in both active trader and institutional community, you need to bring the full infrastructure. And that's kind of led to the dream of CrossTower. So we have assembled a team of a combination of both sort of experts from traditional banking as well as crypto enthusiasts. So we have a pretty amazing young crowd who live and breathe DeFi, who get excited about the next project. And then we every day we are collaborating, putting these sort of kind of two amazing different background, different type of expertise. That team works together, and we're solving those problems that are highlighted one at a time. And we've seen amazing recognition by trading community, and you mentioned that we just hit our record of $1 billion in trading volume, and that's just a good testament. We're really grateful to our customers. They are recognizing what we're bringing.
So CrossTower also recently announced NASDAQ veteran Brian Christian as a global head of exchange. So can you tell us about this development and what this signals to CrossTower's global growth?
Yes, so we are definitely bringing people from both traditional market as well as crypto industry, as I mentioned. Brian Christian and I actually have worked together at CBOE in our early days. He comes with a really good technology background, working from his days at Bloomberg and NASDAQ, and he also led the institutional sales business at CBOE. He's a market structure expert. He recently actually helped build the ETF business at Old Mission. So somebody like Brian, who have built traditional markets from a both technology and market structures perspective, bringing that type of talent into crypto is going to be healthy for the overall industry. We also recently hired back in January our Chief Strategy Officer, Greg Bunn, I'm sorry. And Greg comes from Citadel, where he was the head of counterparty strategy. And he also ran global prime business at Deutsche Bank for 20 plus years. So when I was talking about the infrastructure that's missing for institutional customer, both Brian and Greg understand what it takes to build that infrastructure. So we're bringing that talent. And then in addition, we have brought in some really sharp young mind who are really tech savvy. We have built an amazing research division, and we put out research, recent research for like about NFTs or what other sort of areas of DeFi that somebody should be looking at. We have a good team of options, X options market makers and traders. We are working on volatility in this space. So there's actually, I think, putting together the right team is instrumental, and we're really fortunate that we have attracted a really good talent.
So from what I can understand, CrossTower's biggest point, the most attractive feature, at least what I can see, is the incredible team behind it. Like all of you are these people who have explored the industry. You're going in depth into it, and I think that's the reason why customers are also looking favorably towards your exchange. So could you?
Yes. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Could you tell me a little bit more about it from the standpoint of your customers? What do they expect out of CrossTower, and how do you folks deliver it to them?
Right. Yeah. So just going back to this report that I mentioned that PwC has put out, one of couple of concerns that have come up in this report, and we've been sort of as we're talking to our network, especially in the institutional space, we've been living and breathing for the last 20 plus years. The main issue is trust. I think there is still a lack of trust in digital assets as a real asset class, right? So there is a lot of excitement, and especially in the retail side, but on the institution side, trust is an issue. You still hear hacks. You still hear some government official will go and talk about, oh, crypto is being used for anti-money laundering. Crypto is used by criminals. But I think what's important is to highlight all the positive aspects of crypto. There is data that clearly suggests that actually crypto is helping solve anti-money laundering issues. So going back to the trust component and regulatory certainty, credibility, I think it comes with people who are actually servicing this industry. And that has been our motto, to bring people who are trustworthy, who've done this in their previous life, and who understand what customers are asking, and they can educate customers on what it takes to build an asset class. Our team has built different type of asset classes. Kristen has been instrumental in building the structured product as a product itself in the entire industry. I have been fortunate to be part of teams who have built options as a real retail product. When I joined options industry back in 04, 05, it was not a mainstream product. We took a lot of effort to educate retail customers. So it takes time, effort, education to grow an asset class. So we've done it multiple times, and we're bringing that trust, we're bringing that credibility, and then infrastructure is also important, right? So we have invested in a technology and infrastructure that can sustain these volatile movements. Knocking on the wood, since launch, we have not seen any downtime on our platform. When
that's impressive.
our exchanges couldn't handle in this space, it's people call me, it's like you probably have over-engineered your platform for this, but it's built for future. And I think once you start providing a better infrastructure, better clarity, education, I think the industry appreciates that.
Can you tell us about the recent upside, downside, whatever you call it, the scene in the crypto market? So BTC is languishing somewhere between 35K and 40K, and it's not really going down, not really going up. People are a bit scared. Then we have Elon Musk parading in with his tweets, driving the prices again in a frenzy. So it's a little bit too chaotic. You mentioned factors of trust and education, informing people about these new growing asset classes. So I want to ask this to you: how does market volatility affect an exchange like CrossTower?
So let's kind of break that question into two parts: what's happening in the market itself, and then what it means to exchanges. So just at a macro level, what's happening in the market? I think, look, we had an amazing run. I mean, we went from, I think we closed at what, 29 something, plus minus 1,000 in this space around at the end of the last year. And we went all the way up to 64,000. So if any asset class that's going to grow, we appreciate this fast, it is natural that there will be a correction. So there is nothing if anyone is surprised by that, I'm surprised that they are surprised. I think when we hit those peaks, it was natural that there was some profit taking. There are some really large, sharp institutional investors who have come in this space. What we also analyzed, we saw the data, our research team looked at it. Most of the sort of selling came from new buyers in the space. So buyers who actually got into this asset class in the last 3 to 6 months were primarily responsible for selling in this last sort of kind of bear run. What that tells me is long-term holders are still not going away. They're holding.
Yes, they are.
Now, as soon as that pullback happened, one thing that definitely concerns me in this space, and I've seen this again and again in other asset classes, especially I lived through the 2008 financial crisis. The major reason behind that financial crisis was leverage.
Right.
We've seen this again and again. Over leverage is never good. And it kind of concerns me how some platform are offering the type of leverage to retail customers that's almost as good as just gambling. You could go to Las Vegas and then just have the same fun. I mean, if I can get a 100x, 125x, 150x, every other new exchange comes in is like, oh, other competition is giving 120. I'm going to give 130. If that's your competitive edge, then I think you're just unfortunately adding fuel to the fire.
Right.
So as soon as that sort of kind of pullback happened, we saw a lot of deleveraging. And that deleveraging essentially just cascaded the downturn. I think we've been watching open interest in derivatives market very closely, and which shows that a lot of that leverage actually has been sucked out of the industry. So we are at a much, much healthy level right now in terms of the amount of leverage in this asset class, as well as just from technical indicators perspective, the market is actually stabilizing. So I think if there is any, I mean, not that I'm giving any sort of investment advice here, full disclaimer, but it's a great time to get into asset class. Like just last night, I was thinking maybe I should add more on my own personal portfolio.
So like they say, buy the dip.
By the dip, yes. And then also, obviously, it also depends on your time horizon. Right? So for long-term investors, and I'm a true believer in this asset class, this is just noise. Now, what it means to exchanges, again, living through 2008 financial crisis, volatility is a really amazing sort of benefit for exchanges, because volatile times, 2008, 2009 is, if you look at exchange as an industry, was probably the best time for exchanges. It was kind of unfortunate that our customers were not necessarily profitable, and some of them couldn't even make it. They didn't survive financial crisis. So long run, of course, when your customers are not able to make it, it's not healthy for any industry. But I don't think we are there yet. So volatility was actually really amazing. We hit another record. So in April, we announced almost 200% growth from March levels. And in May, we beat that record. So we haven't actually sent out our May numbers yet, but we did surpass our April record. So month over month, as volatility is happening, companies like CrossTower, then this is where infrastructure comes in play. If in volatile times, if your technology cannot handle, then your customer will shy away. And especially, I come from a high frequency background. A market maker who is streaming tons and tons of quotes in your system, last thing they want is their quotes to get stuck when the system is down. Because after 3-4 hours, if you're going to bring your platform back, you don't really know what happened to those orders that got stuck in the system. You may get filled, you may not get filled. So how do you risk manage in that situation? So what they do is once you lose trust in technology, they pull back in terms of their appetite, that the risk appetite they can take on that platform, and that leads to widespread in the market. So providing proper infrastructure, proper risk management means better liquidity. Market makers have confidence, they will give you better liquidity, and it's healthy for the industry. So if you have a good infrastructure, which is where I think we're really fortunate that our technology team has done an amazing job, it's great to be an exchange business at this time.
Right. I had a question I wanted to ask you. So, Kapil, from all this time, we've been talking about the good side of crypto, the responsible side of crypto, talking about responsible investing. But then there happens to be crypto projects, cryptocurrencies like Dogecoin and Shiba Inu, which were made just for the hell of it, just for the fun of it. They were made as meme coins, but now you see them as the new rage in the market. Dogecoin is one of the biggest cryptocurrencies in market cap at the moment as well. So what I want to ask you is, what makes some sense out of this for us? Why do you think investors are investing such large amounts into a technology like Dogecoin, which does not have any technology to speak of? It does not it does not attempt to solve any of the current issues in the industry. It was made for fun, but look where that joke has landed us. So please share your thoughts.
Yeah, so I don't think it's unique to crypto. It's actually what's interesting is we kind of live and breathe this in the crypto world, but in equities, if you saw what happened with GameStop,
Yeah,
what happened with AMC, I think my own personal theory is COVID sitting at home has just bored us so much that we want to find better way to get entertainment. And we're seeing this and the other aspect is community. I think we cannot ignore the power of community. So going back to, again, Wall Street Bets, that was a Reddit-based community that went on a mission, and they successfully were able to push AMC and GameStop to the level that you can't just explain. There's no fundamental reason to explain why those levels. And their mission was, oh, let's go have fun with hedge funds.
right.
So I think the power of community, especially in this day and age with so much social media influence, so much technology, we're living on Zoom. We don't go out. We don't have time to spend time or meet with other people. I think Dogecoin and other sort of meme coins are pretty much sending us a message that community means something. If a group or a community decide to support any particular asset, you can't just really stop it, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's good and bad. I think it's the community and the investors in that community are taking, obviously they're putting their own money at risk, so they're taking a decision. So I think this is somewhat kind of, I would say, probably not directly related to investor protection or here. It's just like, look, you should know what you're doing. If community is supporting it, then yeah, why not?
Right. So the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has brought numerous changes around the globe. The crypto market, especially, it was after the pandemic that it swelled up to become the big sensation that it is now. So obviously, the pandemic has ushered in, rather forced us to accept that digital currencies could be something that we have been looking for all this time. Now, I read that CrossTower has been heading a fundraising initiative called Running for Oxygen, along with Khalsa Aid USA. And you're gathering funds to help combat the second wave of COVID-19 in India. So could you tell us more about this initiative and how it's making a difference for India?
Yeah, so I'm sure you're living in Calcutta. You're seeing this firsthand. I unfortunately couldn't fly into India. I have family in Delhi. We in US are really fortunate that everyone or most of the residents are now vaccinated, and I see states after state opening up. The mask requirements have been kind of being diluted. Social gathering have started happening. Unfortunately, the news coming out of India is not that good.
Right.
I personally have been affected by this. My family members have been affected by this. And when I see what's happening on the ground in news, it just kind of breaks my heart. Unfortunately, the healthcare system just got overloaded too quick, too fast. And something as basic as oxygen is, I mean, just who would have thought that we would be actually looking for oxygen rather than medicines or anything. So it is definitely has been catastrophic, and I'm praying. I'm talking to my family every day. We try to actually send some oxygen equipments, and getting those equipments is not easy given the shipment issues, custom issues, and everything. So I started looking at who are the really boots on the ground, and I found Khalsa Aid doing an amazing, amazing job. I'm sure there are some other charities who are doing really good job too there too, but they're helping families with oxygen, families with food, just makeshift hospitals. So we found someone who we can trust, and we decided to raise awareness, especially around Bitcoin 2021 conference. Crypto community has been really fortunate. We've done the community has done well, and if anything that we can do to sort of give back to the world and the society, we raised this campaign, and it's been an amazing support. I'm coming back from Miami. There was a lot of support, people coming in, a lot of donating, appreciating our efforts, recognizing. So it's just like the other side of crypto. I mean, there is definitely a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of party going on, especially if you're in Miami.
Right.
But having sort of a balanced view to the world, recognizing that not everyone is as fortunate, and I'm sure India will make it. I think I come from India. It's a really strong country. We handle many different issues, many scenarios, and I think the government is doing an amazing job. It's just a matter of let's all get together, add another helping hand, and we're very strong people.
Right.
I'm sure we will make through this.
Definitely we will. And once again, thank you for raising awareness of this issue. I know that we all have our roles to play over here, and it just gladdens me so much that the crypto community has come forward to help this initiative out as well. It speaks volumes. So
Thank you.
for the final question of this interview, Kapil, I want you to paint us a picture of what CrossTower will be in the next, let's say, 5 years, because obviously you are industry veterans. You all know what you're doing, right? So you obviously are heading towards somewhere. So what I and our viewers want to know is, where is CrossTower headed, and what sort of a change is it trying to
It's a
make?
good question. Where are we going to be in 5 years or 10 years from now? I think instead of just focusing on CrossTower, let's take a look at on a macro level where this industry is going to be. I think we're seeing a lot of new talent coming in. Schools like MIT, Stanford, Carnegie Mellon in US have started offering programs around cryptography, blockchain. My daughter actually goes to Carnegie Mellon, and she was teaching me cryptography yesterday.
Okay.
So when and they have actually launched their own coin. So
Wow.
when you see so much talent that's going into this industry, this technology, when that 5 years from now, that talent is going to come in the mainstream market, right? So instead of just like we saw this in .com age, people were not going to banks; they wanted to go join technology company, right? So I think we will see that even like people who will go into the banking system, financial system, will be more used to the new concept of payment, new concept of decentralized finance, and new evolution of peer-to-peer transactions, whether it's trading, whether it's lending and borrowing. So the entire concept of banking at core is at a question right now. And I won't be surprised in 5 years from now, either banks are going to completely evolve and they will adopt this as a class, or you will see new types of banks who will be based on a decentralized financing system. So we are really fortunate that we're living through this age, this time, that finance, as we have known for 100+ years, is changing in front of us. And CrossTower is an enabler. We are building an infrastructure to help push that momentum. We are here those banking customers, bank providers. We've built an infrastructure, end-to-end infrastructure, from investment to execution to actually prime finance or prime brokerage for this asset class. And that infrastructure, we built it for a reason, to actually help enable that growth. So I think I'm really excited about CrossTower, but I'm more excited about the industry. I'm more excited about the young generation, that they are living through this evolution. How I personally went through the .com stage. So I've seen what internet has done. And then within the banking system, I saw what electronic trading has done. And this is like sort of third, living through that cycle. I'm really fortunate that we are evolving and then challenging the status quo.
Right. Before we sign off the session, though, I wanted to ask you this one question. You mentioned DeFi. So can you tell our viewers about what they can expect from like the basic differences between centralized financial products and DeFi, and why DeFi might actually lead us onto a better future, as to why DeFi might actually be the future?
Right. So just to kind of break it down for audience who or viewers who have not necessarily been spending and living, breathing crypto the way maybe you and I are doing every minutes and second. The best way I explain DeFi is, think about before email. If you have to go to send a message to your relatives, you have to write a letter. You will go to the post office. Post office will actually distribute it for you. And then internet came, an email came. Now you can directly send that letter to your relative. You don't need to rely on a post office to send that letter. And then just another example, let's say in today, if you want to buy a house and you want mortgage, you go to a bank. Bank will loan you. Where is that source of capital for bank? It's again us.
The people.
So we are depositing into bank, and bank is actually lending it out. What if there is no bank? What if I can lend out to my friends, not my friends, or anyone on blockchain in Australia, in New Zealand, in India? And so there's this concept of peer-to-peer financing that we have now, blockchain has enabled, where you have trust, you have a smart contract, you have actually a online legal system that will honor some of those contracts. That if I'm lending out to someone, I'm not just giving it to, of course, put that sort of credit risk aside, but I'm sure there are protocols who are doing a pretty decent job in managing credit. But at a high level, that's what's happening here. The world is coming together. On a technology, we are able to do financial transactions without going through a banking system. That's mind-boggling. And we're really at an early stage. I think we are still experimenting. But what we are seeing is now that it is possible. Technically, it's possible. From a regulatory and legal standpoint, there's still a lot of work needs to be done. We need to have proper KYC in place. We need to have proper credit checks in place. We need to make sure there's no AML. We need to make sure that no bad elements are taking advantage of it. So we're in first inning, but I'm sure we will figure out all those challenges. DeFi is only has one way. It's to grow. I don't think that you can control it or you can stop it anymore. But it's just fascinating what technologists are able to do.
Right. Thank you so much, Kapil, for coming on our show. And this interview was really amazing. I had a lot of fun listening to your opinions and your commentaries. In fact, your explanation of DeFi is one of the most simplistic and best ones I've heard so far. So I'm sure the viewers understood DeFi as well as it did. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.